It's lovely. It really is. I like this thing.
It is a really nice, engaging car to drive.
Also a brilliant car to drive. It's lovely to just hop in and cruise.
Apparently, it looks a bit depressed, according to one of the electrifying team. I will let you make your own mind up about that one.
And it's quick, 0 to 62 in 5.1.
This design, this shape is not just for funsies, it's not just for turning heads. This is an efficiency car.
A little bit strange, but quirky in a good way.
But this has got a character all of its own. Question is, do you like the character?
This latest edition follows in the footsteps of the Ioniq 5, but aesthetically has very little in common with its bigger brother. In fact, it doesn't have much in common with any other car on the market today. Does that make it weird or wonderful?
The new Hyundai Ioniq 6, sister car to the rather brilliant Ioniq 5, but this time with added slinkiness. Now, the way it looks is all about efficiency apparently, and that is the big story with this car.
Let's have a little look around this thing. Let's just poke and prod around it. And what you're going to see across this car is that wind has very much dictated the design. This is clearly a car that has spent a fair bit of time in a wind tunnel. As such, you've got this very swoopy shape, even at the front. As little flat frontal area as possible, as little in the way of openings and holes as possible.
It looks just like the cool Prophecy concept from early 2020. Alright, so it's not quite as low or as long as the Prophecy, but the sleek roofline and simple curves down the side are almost exactly the same.
And it's very distinctive. It's part saloon, part fastback, part coupe, all weird. The shape is like nothing else on the market. At the front, it's all sort of delicate flowing lines. Very interesting, very kind of retro. And then in the middle, it seems to rise quite dramatically. It's almost as tall as an SUV. But then, as you get further back, you'll see that the rear seems to fall dramatically, so it looks like nothing else on the road. Why? Aerodynamics.
Let's compare that to my Polestar 2, which is somewhere around 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour, typically. We're talking about an extra 50 or more miles of range from a car with the same size battery. That is why efficiency is so important. That's why it's so great to see a car like this.
Get this right, if you can find a set of the company's 18-inch lightweight wheels, this thing will do 382 miles.
Together, these features ensure the Ioniq 6 slips through the air with a drag coefficient of just 0.21, among the best in the world. And that should give it excellent range.
It's a great looking thing, in my opinion. Really aero slippery shapes are not the easiest to make look good. I'll refer you to the Mercedes EQS, which is very aerodynamic, but not especially eye-catching. Obligatory Porsche 911 reference, I have to talk about it because even my housemate, who knows nothing about cars, had a look at a photo of this and went, oh, Porsche.
It also looks like a pretty legit rear wing. This is the kind of thing, dare I say, you might expect to see on a Porsche 911. This giant wing spanning the entire rear of the car and jutting out from the base of the rear window kind of makes it look Porsche-like, a big old rear wing in the back, but interesting in an electric sedan.
Here on the inside, I think the good news continues. This is a really nice interior. It's got a really different shape, of course, to the Ioniq 5, but it doesn't suffer for that. It's not dark or cramped, quite the opposite, in fact. Feels really nice and bright and light and airy. And I think where the interior on the 5 is, for me, I don't know, just a bit too much. This has got more of a pared back, slightly elegant vibe about it.
Another thing you'll notice in here that mimics other similar Hyundai and Kia vehicles, the dashboard is very flat. You can see no curves and lines like you have in a lot of brand new cars. Instead, completely flat, horizontal all the way across, and the center console as well. Totally flat, straight lines. It's like straight lines are back even after years and years of automakers switching more to curves and interiors, and this interior is all flat. Again, similar to the Ioniq 5 and other similar models.
The materials look nice as well. It's got a very nice refined feel. It's very premium in here. I mean, it still surprises me, I know it shouldn't, that, you know, Hyundai are coming up with interiors that can rival those big German manufacturers in terms of look and feel and quality. It's really excellent.
You see, you'll be able to get it with carpets made from old fishing nets. seat fabric that's been formed from recycled plastic, and trim bits painted using reused vegetable oil.
There's some odd touches, but they've been used in other vehicles. For example, getting it into gear. The gear lever is actually a little dial and a giant stalk coming off of the steering column. You can see it here. You push it up for drive, down for reverse, park is a little button at the end. Kind of strange, but that's how this car is, and the Ioniq 5.
So what have you got? Well, you've got the screens up front, the left-hand side being the touch screen, and you've got the same handy controls on the steering wheel, physical buttons here. I've used this system a lot, and it's quick, it's intuitive, and it's clear.
This is a really nice touch. If I indicate while I'm driving, I get my blind spot shown right there on the screen for the left and right hand side. That's such a nice touch.
Now, next up, also cool and interesting in this infotainment system is a feature that Hyundai calls quiet mode. I've shown this in some other Hyundai and Kia models, and it's awesome. Basically, it allows you to turn off the rear speakers entirely so that music only plays through the front speakers. The thinking is, if your kids are napping or sleeping in the back seat, you don't want to wake them up with music, but you still want to listen, you can have the music just coming through the front speakers and it won't be as loud in back.
The ambient lights in this car are really nice as well. You've got this lovely glow at the bottom of the dashboard. You've got the upper and lower portion of the doors glowing, and the lights can actually change depending on how you drive the car. Very, very cool touch.
You can configure this so the colors will brighten and dim as you accelerate and slow down. So you accelerate and the colors get brighter, and you slow down and the colors dim, which I haven't seen before and is kind of cool. You can change the upper and lower ambient lighting colors separately, so you can have two different colors there. And there are some bizarre pre-selected color choices, such as Healing Forest and Beautiful Day. I'm not sure how to represent those in colors, but the people who created this car have figured that out. And next up, we move on to the back seat in the Ioniq 6. And first things first, it's pretty roomy back here. Roomier than I would expect given this car's size. This car is about 191 inches long, about the same length as a Toyota Camry. It feels a little bit bigger than a mid-size sedan back here.
As for the back of the car, this is the area that I'm most worried about in the Ioniq 6, but it's actually not too bad. The floor is a little bit on the high side, so notice my legs are on an upward trajectory. That's because the batteries are mounted low in the car, so there's less space for my legs, but the headroom is actually all right. I'm 5'11", and that feels like it was built for me. You've also got armrests, 2 cup holders, plus 2 high-speed charging USB ports, and some nice ambient lighting in the doors, and a little bit of space dedicated for your mobile phone. On the whole, oh, I've just spotted as well, heated seats. That's pretty generous. Yeah, it's good back here.
Look at these camera wing mirrors. They are see-through. That is awesome. They're not really see-through. I mean, the kind of outer casing is transparent, and then inside of that, there's just more casing. But the more casing is designed in such a way that it kind of looks like you're staring at the gubbins and the tech and the bits, and I really like that. It's such an unusual touch.
Probably the quirkiest thing on the outside of this car, except for maybe some of the weird pixels, is the antenna, which is usually never quirky at all. But in this car, it's translucent. You can see through it. This isn't just a black fin. If you look closely, you can see the inner workings of the antenna in case that's something that you want to see. Ferrari has transparent panels over its engine so you can look in and see the mighty powertrain. Well, this has a transparent panel over the antenna in case you ever wanted to see what's inside the antenna, the mighty antenna. There's a transparent panel, which is certainly weird. All right, I'm gonna start the quirks and features of the Ioniq 6 by starting with the key, which you can see is oval, egg-shaped, kind of interesting, but the cool part is if you tilt it on its side, it's making the Hyundai logo. The button pattern and the space between makes the Hyundai H, you can see it here, compared to the badge on the car, and that is a very clever little detail in the key that you might not notice unless you've seen this video. And next up, we move on to the cargo area in the Ioniq 6, and it's important to point out that this is a trunk, not a hatchback. Even though this car has kind of a hatchbacky teardrop shape, and even though these hatchbacky teardrop electric cars have been popular, this car has a trunk, a standard traditional trunk like you would get from a sedan. This accessory here, if you plug that into the charge port, you can pull off a cap on the other side where you can see a standard household power outlet, and from there you can use the battery power the car has to power whatever you want.
It is a really nice, engaging car to drive. In fact, I do have to say that I do quite like the way this drives. I guess I'm aware of the size. Yes, it does feel quite long, but compared to the Ioniq 5, and in fact quite a lot of other big electric cars, it feels more nimble, more precise, particularly through the steering.
And actually, this one I have here, this all-wheel drive car, this will do 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.1 seconds. Look, no slouch at all. But I'm not much interested in driving it quickly or hurrying it along because the car doesn't feel like that's what it really wants to do. Much like the 5, it's a very relaxed, serene driving experience. It's very quiet in here. It's very smooth. The steering is quite light. It's a placid car, and I don't feel the desire to hurry it along. I just don't think the car is much interested in doing that sort of thing. The thing I'm least sure about design-wise on this car is this rear bumper here. I'm just not entirely sure about these. They look quite, well, it sort of looks like something you'd see on the N version, the sporty one, and I think for that to work it should be a bit wider and thicker and stancier and archy, but I digress. That's very subjective stuff.
And as for market position, you may be wondering who's going to buy this over the Ioniq 5. And the answer is people who still want sedans. They're out there. People want a car-like driving experience, don't necessarily want a crossover, or they don't like the Ioniq 5's kind of unusual styling. Here's something maybe a little bit more traditional. Obviously, these cars share the same platform, the same architecture, and the same powertrains. Those power figures are the same in the Ioniq 5 as the Ioniq 6. So basically, these are the same cars, just with different bodies, different interiors, and you can kind of pick which one you prefer.
Would I go as far as to call it fun? Not necessarily. It's not that kind of car, but it's definitely more enjoyable than its big brother. It's lovely. It really is. I like this thing. So, is the Ioniq 6 weird or wonderful? I'd actually say it's a bit of both. It's weird, certainly, to look at. Whenever you look at this car, you can't work out whether it was designed in this century or 5 centuries ago. It has this kind of timeless look about it, which some people are going to hate, but I hope a lot of people might actually love it.